We all have certain fears, and fears are completely normal because without being fearful of certain things, it would make us struggle through everyday life. For example, taking a shit in the school bathroom. If you need to take a dump, surely you can use a properly functioning toilet in the school bathroom, right? Realistically, bruh, if you try taking a dump in the school bathroom, motherfuckers will walk in there and be like, "Ooh, someone's taking a shit." And once they identify that the poop smell is coming from your stall, they're gonna start banging on the door, throwing wet paper towels over the stalls, or even start recording you with their phones over the stall with the flash on. And all of this could have been avoided if you had a fear of taking a dump at school. Yeah, in this video, I'm gonna be talking about some of my personal childhood fears, and I feel like you guys can relate to some of them too. Let's get it, bruh. When I was younger, my parents used to turn on the light in the hallway and crack my door open a little bit so I wouldn't get scared of the dark when I went to sleep. Like, I couldn't fall asleep unless there was some source of light. I also used to do this thing where I would run as fast as I can to my room after turning off the lights in the bathroom or in the living room. Just any area that was dark, I would think that there was a predator or something lurking around in there. Which makes sense because when people say they're afraid of the dark, most of the time, it's not actually a fear of the dark, but a fear of the unknown. Because back then, and even today, if you showed me a piece of paper with a big black square on it, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, what the fuck is that?" Like, you know what I mean? But if you place me in a dark mental asylum that's been abandoned for 67 years with broken glass scattered on the floor and suspicious red liquid splattered across the walls, then yeah, I'd be scared as fuck. I'd be trying to find my way out of there. I'm not investigating shit. Going back to my fear of sleeping in the dark, another thing that would scare the living shit out of me would be the coat hanger behind my door. Just let me explain, bro. Let me land. So this coat hanger behind my bedroom door, or I guess it was more of a coat hook, I used to hang my hoodies and jackets onto it. And at night, when it was dark in my room, I used to see my jackets and hoodies on the coat hanger behind the door, and they resembled the outline of someone's upper body. And that scared the shit out of me, bro. Oh, shit! Because there was this one puffer jacket that I had that deadass resembled the outline of the upper body of a creepy girl in a dress. And when I got scared of that shit, I would tuck myself underneath my covers and try to hide from it. And in the back of my mind, shit, I gotta use different words, bro, my bad. Inside of my mind, I would imagine the floating body of a creepy girl looming over me as I was underneath my covers. Like, I would periodically create a small gap with my covers just so I could breathe, bro, because I was suffocating in that bitch. I would keep doing this until I got tired and just fell asleep normally. I'm sure all of you can relate to having a fear of the dark as a kid, but this next fear I'm gonna talk about, I feel like it isn't that common, but it might be even worse than my fear of the dark. Every night after watching Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, my dad would watch those police shows where they report crimes like theft, break-ins, and shit like that. And occasionally, I would stay up late and I would watch this show with him. On this show, the reports that involved home invasions were scary as fuck to me. I remember they would put the face of the criminal on the screen and have their name, ethnicity, height, and the location where the home invasion was committed. The faces of the criminals on that show were burned into my mind as I went to sleep that night. Every night, I would pray to God specifically that no bad guys would break into the house. And you might be thinking, well, no shit, who wouldn't have a fear of an intruder breaking into your house? Bro, I'm telling you, my fear for this was on another level. I remember situations where it was late at night, I was struggling to sleep, and I would hear the smallest sounds, like creaking, or just sounds of the house settling in. These sounds used to freak me out to the point where I would wake up my dad and tell him that there might be a bad guy in the living room. And when he woke up pissed and walked to the living room of the house, there was no one there. And I did this a lot, bro, and I remember this one specific time where I woke up my dad and he refused to check if there was a bad guy, and he told me to do it myself, like he was fed up with me, bro. After he told me this, I decided to go check for myself. I remember walking as quietly as I could, trying not to make a sound, and I was scared as fuck. My heart was beating out of my chest, and when I got to the living room, I saw... absolutely nothing. And because of how paranoid I was, I double checked that the front door, back door, back door, ooh, back door, and all the windows were locked before I headed back to my room. Honestly, after this situation happened, I stopped being paranoid about people breaking into the house. I'm honestly still scared of heights to this day, but when I was a kid, my fear for heights was 10 times worse. I remember this one time I was at a school camp in year 5, and if you guys aren't familiar with school camps, it's pretty much a camp that consists of like a couple year levels or grade levels at a school, and we all go to a camping area and do activities. School camps used to hit, like I've made so much good memories through them, but this story I'ma tell right now was one of the bad memories. On the second day of the school camp in the afternoon, we were doing an activity called abseiling, and if you don't know what abseiling is, it's pretty much using a harness and a rope to climb up and down a wall. When we were doing the abseiling activity, we all had turns going up and down a wall, and this wall was around the height of a 2-story house, so it was kinda tall, especially for a bunch of 9 to 10 year olds. Because of my fear of heights, I moved myself to the back of the line for the abseiling activity. While waiting for my turn, a few other people were scared to do it as well, and it was mainly the girls that found it scary, but most of the guys did the abseiling activity with no issue at all.
Light work, no reaction.
When it came to my turn, they secured my harness and told me the instructions on how to climb up the wall. Going up the wall wasn't too bad, and all I had to do was kinda walk up the wall one small step at a time. When it was time to go back down the wall, that's when my nerves started kicking in. It low-key felt like I was going to fall, and that falling feeling, along with the fact that I was pretty high up and had an insane fear of heights, I'm not gonna lie, I started crying, bruh. Like I was sweating, shaking, and I think I was having a panic attack or some shit. When I started bawling out like a little pussy, they got one of the instructors to grab me and carry me back down to the ground. And after they removed my harness, one of the teachers brought me back inside to this kitchen area inside one of the camp buildings, and they gave me a glass of water and told me to sit down and breathe slowly in and out. At this moment, I felt like such a pussy because I was the only person that couldn't complete the activity out of everyone. Luckily, I didn't get flamed for it, and we all went on to complete the rest of the activities for the day. Yeah bro, I was such a pussy when I was a kid, but ever since I hit puberty and my balls dropped, my fear of heights now isn't too bad. Like I've been able to go on rides and do activities that involve being high up, but I would still get scared though. I will scream like a little bitch if there's a big drop in a roller coaster, but I no longer get scared to the point where I would have a full-on panic attack, just like how I did at that one school camp. Let's get on to my next childhood fear. Just like the second fear I talked about, I developed this fear while my dad was watching a documentary about the 2011 Japan earthquake. And I remember CCTV footage of buildings shaking while people were still inside, and seeing a bunch of shelves and shit fall down while people were frantically trying to evacuate the building. I was pretty young when I saw this. I was probably around 4 or 5 years old. Because of that documentary, I developed a fear of earthquake. And the thing is, right, the country that I lived in is notorious for having earthquakes. So an earthquake actually happening was definitely a possibility. In my primary school, the classroom I was in during year 1 was right beside the auditorium. One time there was another class inside the auditorium, and I think they were playing sports or some shit, but whatever they were doing, it was causing a lot of vibrating and shaking to a point where it felt like there was an earthquake. I reacted the exact same way as I did in my school camp story, but I don't remember crying in this one though. I just remembered that it felt like it was getting really hot and I was breathing really fast. The teacher ended up having to get me to take off my shirt and sit down in the corner of the class to calm down. Let me know down in the comments if you can relate to any of these stories, and if you don't relate, then yeah, I was just a weird ass kid, bruh.
Riding in that Tonka, you can't see me with no black. Fucking know you 30, yeah, I brought that bitch back.